I am a veteran of the Second World War, and I've created a show based on my experiences. Some of it is comedy and some of it is tragedy, and it's a story that only I can tell.
And it's all going to be fabulous, of course. This is Antony Holland. He's our guest today on Go Island.
Today on Go Island, those in need more than food banks. Artist, storyteller, and modern-day Renaissance man Arthur Vickers, and a conversation with cigarettes. That and more today on Go.
You're watching Go Island in Nanaimo, Oceanside, Shaw TV, Channel 4. Now, before we chat with Antony Holland and get a little bit of performance from his latest play, One Man in His Time, we're going to find out from Frank Moore from Western Edge Theatre what makes him a legend. What is it about Antony?
Well, Antony goes back a long way in the theatre culture of this province, both as a performer and as an actor. He was, one of the people first doing theatre in Vancouver in mid-century, really, in the previous century. But he also founded a theatre school at Langara College called Studio 58, right, which he ran for many, many years, and which trained many of the working actors in the province and across the country, for that matter. And then, since leaving Langara and coming to Gabriola, which was, I don't know, maybe 20 years ago now, if not more, he's continued to be very, very active, both as a teacher, but particularly as an actor. He first worked with us in Tuesdays with Maury, which was in our second season at Western Edge Theatre and became our first big hit. But after doing it for us in Nanaimo, Antony went on to recreate the performance at the Arts Club and won the Jessie Award for it. So he got a second win in a big way at that time as an actor, and just hasn't stopped since.
What is it, do you think, about his presence on stage, his approach to a script or a character? Well,
Antony's a very charismatic guy, and that carries through on stage. And I think he is a very welcoming sort of personality on stage. Whatever role he's in, you feel taken into the performance, welcomed into the show. I think he's just a very, very smart performer in that way.
Great, thanks, Frank. Now, this is only, I was almost getting ready to go on to our next story, but this is the first of the season for Western Edge. Yeah. Tell me quickly about the rest of the season you've got coming up.
After One Man in His Time, we have a play called The Agony and the Ecstasy of Steve Jobs, which is a very controversial play about an Apple fanboy who goes on a journey to China and discovers some interesting things about the way our technology gets made. That's right. And for various reasons, this play has become both controversial and somewhat notorious, and I'll be performing it myself for Western Edge Theatre.
Is it a one-man?
It's a one-person show, yeah. All the shows in this fall series are solo shows. So I've actually adapted The Agony and the Ecstasy of Steve Jobs to help the audience understand why it became as controversial as it did. At the same time, it's a very, very funny play about a guy who goes from being, an absolute geek to having a sort of bigger understanding of what it means to be a geek and where our technology comes from.
Okay, that's number 2. Number 3?
The third in November is the also legendary folk performer Bob Bosson, who people of a certain age will remember from String Band, but he has a brand new show called Stories and Songs of Davy the Punk, which is about his father, who was a bookie in Toronto in the 1940s and sort of led a Damon Runyon-esque life there, and was eventually tried on charges, the result of which, the trial resulted in precedents which are in effect to this day. So it's actually a pretty amazing story that starts in a very emotional place and opens out from there. But anyway, it shows you a side of Toronto the Good that you've probably never seen before.
Okay. And is that the last in the season?
That's the fall series, and then our new artistic producer will announce her plans for 2013 sometime early in the new year.
Okay. And that's a bit of a hint at some big changes coming up for Western Edge Theatre at the end of this year in December. We'll tell you more about that later on this edition of Go. We'll also share some of Antony Holland's charismatic performance from his latest show, One Man in His Time, and have a feature chat with Antony later on Go. In the meantime, the News Community Services goes beyond helping people through food banks with things like paying your vet bills or gas on your car, insurance on your vehicle. Annette Lucas has that story. The News Bay Community Services is hosting their annual Thanks for Giving golf tournament on Saturday, September the 29th. There are still spots available. You can still register, and the number to do that is 250-460-9888. You can get more details, of course, through their website as well. Antony Holland, BC, Canada, North American, worldwide stage legend here at Nanaimo Center Stage in Nanaimo. We're talking about his new show, One Man in His Time, and it's Antony's real life experiences in the Desert War in Egypt and Libya in World War II. Actually kind of sounds like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. I do know that I would have a hard time describing war as being rollicking, yet that's the description of the show that I've read somewhere. How can you take this content and make it rollicking?
Well, because it's there's always comedy and tragedy in all wars. So I have tended in this show to emphasize the comic, and the true stories are sort of unbelievable, very, very funny stories, you know.
When did you write it?
Well, it started with this guy who wrote my biography. He kept asking me questions about the Second World War, and so all these memories flooded back. And then I finally thought, I'll make this into a piece of theater, because there are poems written by guys I knew, songs that we all used to sing with no music. You don't have a musical instrument in the desert, you know. It doesn't last.
No.
Yeah, yeah.
You're 92 years old.
And a half.
And a half.
Right.
There aren't a lot of World War II vets left, and here you are documenting the story and preserving it in a way. Is that part of the objective in this?
Well, yeah. I mean, it's also because of my buddies, or most of them are gone now, and it's their memory too, you know. But it is a story that's not well known, because the Canadian Army was mostly in Europe. They didn't really take part in this desert war in Libya and Egypt, and that was the only combat thing that was going on from 1940 to 43 until the Americans and the British and Canadians invaded Italy. And then they got into combat, yeah.
We're going to have an excerpt from One Man in His Time from Antony Holland later on this edition of Go. Before we do that, can you take us through a bit of the structure, what methods you've used to tell your story on stage?
Yeah, well, I go from the very beginning when I was conscripted into the army. I mean, I didn't want to join the army, but you either joined the army or went to jail.
And you were 20 years old?
Yeah, so every male at the age of 20 was conscripted. So I was thrown into infantry training to begin with, 6 weeks, and so all these things were unexpected to me, and to all the other guys as well. And we eventually went overseas. Well, I didn't know how long we were going to be there. I was 4.5 years away from my homeland, you know, and so was almost everybody else. That was the difference between the Second World War and the First World War. First World War in the trenches was a terrible life, but the guy could go back to England on leave, but not in the Second World War. The Canadians were stuck in Europe for over 3 years.
Antony, I have so many more questions, and I don't have any more minutes to ask them on this edition of Go. If I talk more now, we'll have less time to get some performance later. We'll be back with more on Go Island.
Still to come on Go Island, harmonious horses, harmony for the rider and the ridden, plus a song with Antony Holland. That's coming up today on Go.
You are watching Go Island on Shaw TV Channel 4, and today we are on stage at Nanaimo Center Stage, where Antony Holland will be performing his new show, One Man in His Time. That's Frank Moore with Western Edge Theatre, who is presenting Antony Holland, One Man in His Time, opening on September the 28th. But you know, Frank has been at the helm of Western Edge Theatre for, what is it, 10 years?
10 years.
10 years now, and as of December this year, he's stepping down, and things will be transferred over to the capable hands of Eliza Gardner, who's very well known in the theater world here in Nanaimo and beyond. If you'd like to keep up on all of the information about what Western Edge is up to these days, you can visit their website, westernedgetheatre.org, sign up for their newsletter, and you can buy tickets to One Man in His Time through their website as well. We're going to continue on here with Go Island. We're going to throw things over to Sucheta Singh, who visits with Arthur Vickers in Cowichan Bay. But before that, Melissa Hall has a story that we've called Harmonious Horses. You're watching Go Island, and we are on stage at Nanaimo Center Stage. This is Antony Holland. He's getting ready to perform here in Western Edge Theater's fall lineup, a new show called One Man in His Time. Antony, you can set up what we're about to do next. What are you going to show us?
Well, it's a poem written by a guy I knew, and it's all about leaving England to go overseas. And we had no idea how long we were going to be there. I was actually there 4.5 years, so I never thought that was going to happen.
Okay, and so this is a part of the show?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, take it away.
This is his poem. In an undetected train, we left our land at evening, secretly, from a wayside station. None knew our place of parting. No pale hand waved as we went. Not one friend said farewell. With blinds drawn down, we left the things we knew, the simple fields, the homely ricks and yards and English towns. We saw them not. Instead, we played at cards, or strangely dropped asleep. Then, in a callow dawn, we stood in line, like foreigners on bare and unknown quays, till someone bravely into the hollow of waiting cast a timid wisp of song. Bless 'em all, bless 'em all. It passed along the line of soldiers like a secret pass from mouth to mouth, and slowly gave us ease. In our singing, courage was set free. We were bonded once more and strong. So we sang as our ship set sail, sang our own songs, and leaning on the rail, waved at the workmen on the passing quay. And they, in turn, waved back to us for fellowship.
And yet again, I feel like we're just getting warmed up. In the show, One Man in His Time, Antony would then go into song, which we're going to do, but not right this second. We'll come back on Go Island with a song from Antony Holland. In the meantime, here's James Green pondering his relationship with cigarettes. As we promised before, James Green and his exploration into smoking on the streets of Victoria. Here now is Antony Holland on Go Island with a song from One Man in His Time.
Bless 'em all, bless 'em all, the long and the short and the tall. Bless all the sergeants and WO1s, bless all the corporals and their blinking sons, for we're saying goodbye to them all. As off to their billets they crawl. You'll get no promotion this side of the ocean, so cheer up, my lads. Oh.
And on that note, thank you, Antony. On that note, we are at the end of this edition of Go Island. But before we sign off, we're going to let you know that acknowledge that the United Way kickoff breakfast took place on Friday in Nanaimo. This year's fundraising campaign, Change Starts Here, raises funds to run programs for children, youth and seniors in central Vancouver Island, the Comox Valley and Campbell River. The money raised this year will provide grants to 44 charities supporting 50 different programs. To find out more about what the United Way does in the community and how you can help or benefit, visit www.uwcnvi.ca. We'd like to give a little shout out to Shaw TV's Melissa Hall, who woke up, I think it's still dark and early, as Rick Clough says on CBC Radio in the morning, to go cover the United Way kickoff breakfast on Friday morning. That brings us to the end of this edition of Go Island. One Man in His Time, starring Antony Holland, runs at Western Edge Theater through Western Edge Theater here at Nanaimo Center Stage for only 5 performances. Get it before it's gone. You can buy your tickets online, westernedgetheater.org. Thanks for watching Go Island. We'll see you next time.